We all have dreams, but dreams by their very nature can be difficult to achieve. That's where Access Credit Union comes in. Whether it's going to college, owning a car, or building your dream home, your local credit union can help you to fulfill your dreams. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star, and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years. With the county championships in full swing and the games coming thick and fast, we're going to be joined on today's podcast by Cork and Clonakilty's Sean White. Clon got their championship campaign off to a winning start with an impressive win over Ilen Rovers last Saturday week, and we'll ask Sean for his hopes for the rest of the season and for his thoughts on Ronan McCarthy's departure as Cork manager. But Kieran, we have to start with the All Ireland Camogie final, which saw Cork defeated by Galway after an epic in Croke Park on Sunday. As predicted, Enniskeane's Orla Cronin was given the green light to start despite her red card in the semi-final versus Kilkenny, but even her brilliance wasn't enough for Paddy Murray's side as Galway ran out 3-point winners to claim their 4th All-Ireland crown. As I said, Kieran, it was an epic encounter between the two best sides in the country. Unfortunately, Cork came out on the wrong side of it, but overall, what was your take having watched the game?
Cork came, they saw, and they almost conquered. It was so close, Jack. Great effort by Cork. At the outset of the season, you were looking at Galway and Kilkenny as the top two sides in the country, and they have been for the last couple of years. This was Cork's first All-Ireland senior final appearance since 2018, and they got there the hard way. They dethroned the reigning champions Kilkenny in the semi-final, so that set them up in good stead for the final against a Galway team that won this crown 2 years ago. And with 11 minutes left after Katrina Mackey got a goal, Cork led 1-11 to 11 points. But it's still, we saw the experience of this Galway team shine through, and they finished much stronger. And to be honest, it was their game management that stood out for me. They just knew what to do at the right times. And then it was Siobhan McGrath got that crucial goal a couple of minutes from the end. And Galway just kicked on. But a great effort by this Cork team. And it's worth noting too, Jack, I have it here, there was five All-Ireland final debutants on the Cork team. So you had the Courcy Rovers duo of Fiona Keating and Saoirse McCarthy. You had 19-year-old Ciara O'Sullivan from Newcestown, you goalkeeper Amy Lee, and you'd wing-back Laura Hayes. So that's 5 Cork players playing their first senior All-Ireland final. So they'll learn from that experience and they'll get better for it. So Cork are down right now, but they're definitely not out. And this team is young enough and good enough to bounce back. But you're right about Orla Cronin too. Magnificent game for what she went through in the couple of days beforehand. She only found out at the 11th hour. Was it very late Saturday night or early Saturday morning? The DRA gave her a kind of an interim relief to play in the All-Ireland final on Sunday. It's a very odd situation because that 3-match suspension is still hanging over Orla Cronin, and it's going to be dealt with at some point in the not too distant future. So you could still see Orla Cronin getting that 3-match ban for that red card that she got against Kilkenny. So it's I know it's different to the game itself, but there's a precedent being set here now. And it's a very dangerous precedent for any player that's sent off who gets a suspension headed up to a big game, an All-Ireland final. Because now Orla Cronin, she got the interim relief, and I'm using the rabbit ears because that's what the official press release called it, to allow her to play in the final. She played well, got 6 points, 2 from play, one of Cork's best players. But it opens another can of worms for GA, the Camogie Association, and so on. What if this happens again?
Kieran, just on that then, we won't dwell too much on the precedent it may have set, because obviously that's the kind of worms you said that we don't necessarily need to go into just now. But what about the actual effect that the build-up, it said, may or may not have had on Paddy Murray's side? Because as you said, we didn't know whether Orla Cronin was going to be involved until the very, very latest moment possible. And before that point, we were under the impression that Linda Collins of Corsi Rovers was set to start. She was named in the starting 15, and then again she's pulled out of the team. So there was obviously a lot of confusion in the build-up amongst the players, amongst the management, amongst the fans. No one really knew what was going on until just a number of hours before throw-in. So I know it was great for Cork to have their star player in the team in Orla Cronin, but that sort of build-up, that disruption, exactly, that can't have helped matters, especially in the fact, as you mentioned, this is such a young Cork side with 5 debutants. So it's not like they were a team of experienced campaigners who are used to everything being thrown at them on the day of a big game. This was a young, inexperienced team at this level thrown into total disarray. So even though I know you want your best player to play, it seems that the disruption may have had an effect. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but to me, from the outside looking in, that just seems like a very disruptive build-up.
It can't be ideal at all, because the process Orla Cronin went through last week, there was a hearings committee and there was the appeals committee, and her plea to have a ban overturned was rejected by both. With the appeals committee was on the Friday night, so that put it to the DRA emergency hearing late on Saturday evening. So of course that's not ideal at all, because we're talking about an all-star camogie player from 2020. Orla Cronin is a fantastic camogie player. She's so key to the Cork, not alone her free taking, but how she kind of links up defence and attack, and even like she's a playmaker as well. Like, she's just such an important player for Cork. So for Cork last week, not to know that Orla Cronin was going to be available, of course it can. Like, it must have been a disruption. Like, they're not going to come out and say that. You know, kind of they focused on their build up, and they named Linda Collins in the team, and they named their team, I think it came out on Thursday or Friday, the team to start. But then obviously when Orla was granted that reprieve, Linda dropped to the bench, but then came on to, again, credit Linda Collins. She made a great impact when she came off the bench. She helped set up Katrina Mackey's goal. So just want to kind of a heads up to Linda Collins there, because in the last 2 games, she was disappointed to be dropped to the bench, but every time she came on, she showed great character to make an impact. But back to Orla Cronin, obviously, yeah, it wasn't ideal. Orla being the consummate pro that she is, like I said earlier, she was superb on Sunday, one of Cork's best players. So it obviously didn't affect her. And I think Paddy Murray was saying afterwards in his after-match reaction that they knew once it got to the DRA that she had a good chance of playing the game then. So again, that leads to more questions, probably for a later podcast, about that whole disciplinary process and what it's all about, really. But I think you're right, Jack. It can't have been ideal. But saying that, after the game, Paddy Murray was making no excuses whatsoever. He said the better team won. Galway had the experience. They started better. They definitely finished a stronger team. So there can't be any qualms at all that Galway were deserving winners. But Cork's build-up, there was a cloud over it to a certain extent because of the will Orla start, won't you start conundrum.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want it to be heard that we're making excuses for Cork when we're talking about this disrupted build-up, but more from a Cork point of view, could they have handled it any better themselves? Because when you take a look at Linda Collins, who was the hero in the semi-final, in her first year captain in the Cork side, who knows, it might be her only ever chance, and she's being pulled from pillar to post in the build-up to the game as well. And obviously you said she handled it brilliantly, as a captain should, with great character. But on a personal level, it must have been a difficult 48 hours for Linda. First she's in, she's going to start as captain, then she's out, she's on the bench, then of course she came on and did what she does best. So probably none of what I'm putting out here really affected her, but really difficult circumstances for her as well as for Orla and the entire panel. So fair play to Linda, I'd say, considering what she was through as well.
Exactly, and she gave a brilliant interview with Ronan McCarthy in the Southern Star last week. It was just after the Kilkenny game where Ger talked to Linda Collins about the disappointment of being dropped to the bench, and then when she came on, the role that she had to play for Cork. And what came through that interview with Linda was just how mature, how well she handled the whole situation, and very much a team effort there. And that showed again when she came on the last day. Obviously, she'd have been disappointed not to start the All Ireland final. What was nice though was that she still got to lead the team around at the start. It was kind of a unique
situation. That was an unusual one.
It was unusual, but it was an honour that Linda Collins is Cork captain. She got to lead the team on that pre-match parade, and to see 16 Cork players in that lineup was a bit unusual. But I think for Linda, like, she's had such a good season, and it's such an honour for her and for her club courses to be Cork captain. At least she had that, and like I said, when she came off the bench, she made an impact. But if you're looking at it from the Cork point of view, they couldn't have handled it any better, to be quite honest, because they didn't know right up to that Saturday night or even early Sunday morning that Orla Cronin was going to be available. And you have to start with your best team. And the best Cork team right now has to have Orla Cronin in it. She's that good. She's an exceptional camogie player. And like I said, she proved her worth on Sunday. It's just a pity Cork came up against a better, more experienced team that's further along their development than this Cork team is right now. But all is not lost. This Cork team is good enough. It's young enough. Paddy Murray will hopefully be back in the hot seat next year. He's after 10 years now as the Cork senior camogie manager. They've won 4 All Irelands in that time. He'll see the potential in this team. Like, they're going to get better. The likes of Fiona Keating, Saoirse, Ciara Sullivan, all these young guns who benefit from this experience. So as disappointing as it is now, I think Cork will bounce back.
Yeah, certainly bodes well for the future of Cork camogie. Now we're just going to take a quick break, and coming up we're talking to Cork and Clonakilty footballer Sean White.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Clonakilty got their Premier Senior Football Championship campaign off to a winning start last Saturday week, beating Ilen Rovers in the opening round. And in a few moments we're going to hear from Clon's Sean White. But before we do, Kieran, you were at that game. You were also at Éire Óg's meeting with Carbery Rangers, so you got around on the opening weekend of the championship, saw 4 of the contenders in action. What were your own main takeaways from what you witnessed on the ground?
It was a caveat, this chat with Sean White. In fairness to Sean, we were meant to have him on last week's podcast, but then the news broke on Tuesday that Ronan McCarthy was not continuing on as Cork senior football manager. So Sean was gracious enough to push that chat in to this week's podcast. So thanks to Sean for that. So the open weekend of the County Football Championships was the weekend before last, and I saw 4 of the contenders. Éire Óg just up from the Senior A Football Championship were really impressive when they beat Carbery Rangers, and that's a very interesting group because that group also has Castlehaven and Newcestown. And Éire Óg are always going to be the surprise packets, and by beating Ross in that first game, they've blown that group wide open now, because next up for Carbery Rangers is Newcestown, and Newcestown lost their opener to Castlehaven. So both Ross and Newcestown need to win this game, because let's say Ross, if they lose to Newcestown, then they'll get into their final group game against Castlehaven, needing a win to avoid getting into the relegation dogfight, and that's the last thing that Declan Hayes and Carbery Rangers want. So big game coming up for Carbery Rangers, big game coming up for Newcestown the weekend after this. On Éire Óg, I was fierce impressed with them, to be quite honest. They have momentum behind them right now. Their footballers are going well, their hurlers are going well, and they took that into this game. They finished so strong against Carbery Rangers. They outscored them 182 points in the last 20-25 minutes, and they're a team that could surprise a few. All they need is one more good result, either against Haven or Newcestown, and they'll find themselves in the quarterfinals of the Premier Senior Football. And a team like Éire Óg, with nothing to lose and all to gain, and with a momentum, they're quite dangerous. And then the second game I saw was at Clonakilty, Ilen Rovers, Premier Senior Football game as well. And I think it finished 3-10 to 11 points to Clonakilty. And that old adage, goals win games, and it did for Clon. They got 3 of them, and they won. Dara O'Shea, who's a Kerry import, he's his second season with the club. He hit 2-5. Ross Manning's got a goal in the first half, and Clon were quite impressive. What I was more impressed with was how they dealt with the Ilen Rovers attack, because Ilen Rovers have Stephen Leonard, Sean O'Donovan, Dan McOwen, but Thomas Clancy, the Clon fullback, actually held Stephen Leonard scoreless from the entire game. I think Sean O'Donovan got 1 or 2 points, and Dan McOwen got a couple of frees. So how Clon defensively set up, they dropped a lot of bodies back behind the ball when did a great structure there when Ilen were trying to play their running game, and they just didn't give any space for that Ilen inside forward line to get on the ball and to cause havoc. So Clon were quite impressive, and a key man for them is Sean White. That's why, like I said, Sean was good enough to have a chat with us, because Clon are one of the sleeping giants of Cork senior football, and they've won, I think, 9 senior football titles. That's the most of any West Cork club. But they've flattered to deceive in recent times. But when you consider that the players they have at their disposal, you've Sean White and Mark White brought in with Cork, as is Liam O'Donovan, who's been dogged in injuries, and Maurice Shanley is in with the Cork team too. Thomas Clancy is a former Cork senior as well. Then you have the likes of Joe Grimes and Darragh O'Shea, who've come in the last couple of years and done quite well. They've a young fella like Conor Daly, who impressed as well the last day. So they have a strong squad there, and it'll be interesting to see how they go in their next couple of games against Ballincollig and the Bars. But I was impressed by what I saw from Clon. But when I started with Sean White, you can see now I'm joined by my biggest fan here, but when I started our conversation with Sean White, I actually wanted to find out how he heard about Ronan McCarthy not continuing as Cork football manager. Did he hear it like the rest of us, or did he find out in advance? We're joined now on the Star Sport podcast by Clonakilty and Cork footballer Sean White. We were going to have Sean on last week's podcast, but news broke last week about Ronan McCarthy stepping down as Cork senior football manager. So Sean was gracious enough to hold on for a couple of days. So I hope it's worth the wait for you, Sean. But welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much.
Just on Ronan McCarthy stepping down as Cork senior football manager for a moment, that news kind of came from the blue early last week. What's it like from a player's perspective? Did you learn the same time as the rest of us?
Yeah, I suppose so. We all learned on the same day, I suppose. We just got informed just by management that Ronan would be stepping down. So yeah, the same day, and just I suppose through the same mediums as yourselves. So no big reveal that we weren't aware of on it.
Obviously, like I said, it came both from the blue, and right now we don't know who the next the Cork senior football manager will be. Like, that search is ongoing, and we don't know how long that will take. But from a player's perspective, then, is it almost like you're having to prove yourself again to this new boss, whoever that may be, in terms of the county championships that are on at the moment, that you want to prove, like, I'm on the Cork panel, but I want to show the new boss that I deserve to stay on the Cork panel?
Yeah, I suppose you can look at it that way. I suppose Ronan and the other management team would have been looking at all the past championships as well, So in terms of it being a new championship, it's probably no different. So we're at our clubs and we're concentrating on the clubs, and I suppose that might be in the back of your mind maybe all the time. But as I say, every time you go out and you want to represent your club, I suppose you're always trying to give your best regardless. So whether the new management might be there, or it's just, I suppose, about representing the club and doing your best for them at the time that you're playing with them.
And Clonakilty had a super start to the County Premier Senior Football Championship the weekend before last, a 3-10 to 11-point win against Ilen Rovers in Rosscarbery. I was there myself, and they say goals win games. Clon got them at all the right time, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we managed to get one in the first half when things were kind of nip and tuck. Just towards the end of the first half there, and I think we actually, there was only a point or two in the difference at the time, and a good ball in from Conor managed to find Mannix, who actually had a great finish. And then I suppose in the second half Darragh took a great goal, and then the penalty kind of came at the right time for us, and I suppose we were just able to kind of push on from there to the end. So yeah, we were happy enough with the performance, and obviously just to get the win in the first round was important for us.
And how important is it getting that win in the first round? Like, for listeners who don't know, like, this is obviously there's groups of 4, so teams have 3 group games, and it's the top 2 then that'll advance to the quarters. So getting that first win and getting off to the campaign on a front foot, like, that's so important.
Yeah, I suppose even looking back to last year, we happened to win our first game as well by after beating Carrigaline, and we went on to actually not qualify from the group. So I suppose we have the same 2 games ahead of us now, Ballincollig next, and then St. Finbars. So I suppose in comparison to last year, we just hoping to kind of, I suppose, just push on maybe that little bit extra, and close the gap on maybe the teams who are seen as the big 2 in the group, really.
I was chatting to Thomas Clancy for the Star ahead of the game against Ilen Rovers, and I was just saying to him, I said, our Clon like a sleeping giant in this county football championship. When you look at the calibre of players that Clon can call on, and he made a point that if everyone can get fit and get back together and get a couple of weeks together, that Clon have the ability to do something. I presume you're of the same thinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose internally we would feel that we probably let ourselves down last year. We probably didn't give our best performance against Ballincollig. I think we went 8 points to 0 down after about 6 or 7 minutes. So we were kind of chasing the game. And that actually had a knock-on effect then against St. Finbars, because we had to beat them by 7 or 8 points. And caliber of players they have, that's no easy feat, and we ended up actually losing the match. So I suppose internally this year, with the lads who have come through on the park panel like Morris, and younger lads who have come through with Clon, and just if everyone, as you say, if we get everyone fit on the pitch, because we did have 4 or 5 injuries again the last day, we'd be hoping to maybe get closer to the bars and Ballincollig over the next couple of weeks.
And talking about players coming back, Jesus, it was brilliant to see Maurice Shanley come on in the second half. I don't think he played since the Munster final last year. That was November 2020, and he's been dogged with hamstring injuries. So to see him back in the pitch, and he was involved in I think was he involved in the penalty, was it?
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
Yeah, but just to see Maurice back on the pitch playing again, like that's a huge boost. Not alone to Clon.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Maurice is a phenomenal player. But I suppose it was just great to see him back. I was kind of there for his hamstring injuries through and the struggle through all year, and it's just great to see him, when he's put in the effort into the rehab that finally to get back on the pitch, because I suppose when you're friends with them, that's all you're looking for really, just to go get your friends back out on the pitch and get to play with them. So everyone in Clon, I'd say, and in the wider football community in Cork, is probably delighted to see him back on the pitch.
I think everyone's waiting to see Liam O'Donovan back as well. Jesus, that man has been so unlucky with injuries as well, and he's such a key player for Clon. Like, and that injury he suffered, that was even before last year's county championship. Like, he's missed a hell of a lot of football. So to get Liam back at some point will be a huge boost as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose they've kind of gone through it now the last year together. But they seem to be going through the rehab and stuff together. So hopefully Liam isn't too far away. We'll be hoping to get Liam back in the next couple of weeks as well. And as you say, it'll be a huge boost to us again if we have any aspirations of going further in the county championship.
What were the big positives you took from the win against Ilen Rovers, besides actually getting the win?
I suppose over the last couple of weeks, we've kind of come together and kind of come up with a format of how we wanted to play, and I suppose we did feel that as a team on the day we did manage to implement that. I suppose over the past couple of seasons we've been so cautious of giving away goal scoring opportunities, so I suppose just happy to kind of crack down on the number of goal opportunities we're giving away to the opposition, and I suppose then just to contribute on the other side of the field ourselves and score the scoring opportunities, because as you said, goals do end up winning games, and it was clear to see the last day that we just happened to get the goals, and thankfully we did.
It was very noticeable against Ireland. Like whenever Ireland had the ball, like Clon fell back. You were very structured behind the ball, and you offered up. I can't think of any chances. That maybe Dan McCone right at the end to leave a shot. I think, but like you look at Thomas Clancy, Kevin Leonard scoreless throughout the whole game, and it forced Ireland to try and shoot from distance, and they just couldn't pick off the points. So from a defensive setup, it worked a treat against Ireland.
Yeah, I suppose, and as you say, defensively we probably didn't give up any real goal scoring opportunity, which we, as a defence we would have been happy with. But I suppose the knock-on effect of kind of bringing as many people as we did back was we probably do have the forwards and their pace up the other side of the pitch. So I suppose the defensive benefits are there, but if we actually do manage to turn over the ball to get it forward when there's obviously so much space for our forwards to run into, it seems to benefit them as well, and that actually led to our first and third goals, I think. So the benefits defensively and I suppose from an offensive point of view are both there to see.
I have to ask you about your brother Mark as well. He's the Clon goalkeeper for people who weren't there in the 10th minute of the first half. Mark took off up the field in this surging run, but it kind of ended in around Ireland's 45, and he went down, took a bit of a knock, and in fairness to him, he got a bit of treatment, hobbled back, and he struggled on for the rest of the game, but you could see he wasn't entirely comfortable. And I know Owen Ryan was telling us after that it's probably part of the plan to get Mark more involved this year, and we've seen it with goalkeepers in football now, that they're becoming more and more prevalent up the field. But it's interesting to see that development in terms of football, Sean, that goalkeepers are becoming the 15th outfield player.
Yeah, I suppose absolutely, and I suppose probably a knock-on of the way the kick-out has gone. Usually you'd have probably taken a short kick-out and given it back to the keeper, and the keeper would have just hand-passed it off, whereas now that you're not actually allowed to give it straight back to the keeper, you have to give it back to somebody else maybe first, and by the time that Mark probably gets the ball back, he's already in space, so it almost leads on to, I suppose, Mark top push up the pitch. And yeah, look, Mark, he played outfield for us there for a while last year in the league and things, so he's no stranger to being further up the pitch as well. But yeah, I'd say, I don't know now, he was probably a bit shook after the last day after taking the thump. He was walking fairly gingerly on the leg, but I think he'll be fine. I think it was just a dead leg, so it seemed fairly promising after the match, so he should be okay.
What I actually enjoyed, it was during the second, I think either 45 or I think it was Garrod Barry kind of shouted back for Mark to come up, and I said Mark didn't know what to do because, like I said, he was limping along. But the overall strength of this Clon team, like Darragh O'Shea got 2-5, and okay, he gets the headlines. But a young fella like you said there, Conor Daly, involved in the 2 goals. To see those fellas come up along is very encouraging as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I suppose there are a number of lads who'd be involved in our senior football panel that would have, coached these lads underage. So they wouldn't be like new faces coming into the panel. They'd have maybe been around a few of the lads in terms of underage steps and things like that. So it's great to see people coming through. That's all we need really if we're going to be in contention for the next couple of years. And I suppose that's where everybody in Clon wants to see Clon football to be in contention maybe for county championships. So as I said, the more people that we can get through from the underage, the more successful we might be. And I suppose at senior.
You have a strong management team in place this year, and obviously Hawley O'Neill is back in as coach, and he's a man who knows how to win county championships. What does Hawley bring to the setup?
I suppose just an overall, probably just I suppose everyone in Clon respects Hawley for what he's done for Clon football. So I suppose from a starting point, there's obviously just that huge respect that all the players would have had for him from what he's done in previous years. And then I suppose the backroom team, we would have worked with Neil Deasy under 21 when we had a few successful under 21 teams over a few years. So Neil would have been our coach back then. So I suppose just having that, I suppose, respect from Hawley from what he's done in the past, and having worked with Neil ourselves, so I suppose just trying to give it our all for them is probably what's just working well for us at the moment. And I suppose, look, it's just the plan that they're trying to reinforce is obviously something we've all bought into this year. So hopefully we can push on now again in the next couple of games.
And the next game is against Ballincollig. Looking there, it's September 25th, and Ireland take on the Bars in the same group on the same day. But that game against Ballincollig, like you referenced it earlier, that's a game where you slipped up last year. So that's probably front and centre in your minds right now. Are you really going to target that game? Because if you win that game, and if the other game goes the way most people think it will go, you could almost book your quarterfinal spot with a game to spare, which is the ideal scenario.
Yeah, I suppose we'll just take every game as it comes, to be honest. But as I said earlier, like we felt that last year we gave ourselves a massive hill to climb in the start of the match. As I said, I think it was 8-0 after about 6 or 7 minutes. I think we got it back to about 4 or 5 in the middle of the first half. But I suppose just from giving that extra effort to try to pull the match back, we seemed to tire towards the end of the match, and Ballincollig pulled away again. And with the way the groups are kind of formatted now, the scoring difference just came against us completely last year when we were going in to play the Bars. So we won't look past Ballincollig, to be honest. It'll be a huge game for us. And look, if it'll just be, I suppose, a big check to see how far we might have come in the last 12 months. Basically, so that's all we're looking forward towards at the moment.
How much do you look forward or enjoy being back in with the club? Obviously, in with the Cork footballers for such a huge chunk of the year, didn't finish well in the Munster final, but it was straight back into Clon then, Clon football, Clon hurling. Is it like how much do you enjoy the club side of it?
Oh no, it's great. I suppose there's you get to play with people that I suppose throughout the year you're probably only just seeing outside sports fields. Whereas when you actually get to play with them, then as I said, with, like I referenced Morris earlier, getting to play with your friends, but there's loads of other friends you have as well in Clon that you probably wouldn't get to play with then otherwise just during the year and stuff. And I suppose, look, we've all played for Clon for, I've played for Clon since I was 6 or 7. So it's all about, you just want to go back playing with your club, and I suppose trying to bring them on as much as possible as we can. So it's just a big, huge effort really, and I suppose when you do get to go back playing with the club team, then you're just happy to do that.
Oh, brilliant. The best of luck in the weeks ahead. I know you have a busy few weeks, football and hurling, Sean, so hope it all works out.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kieran.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Welcome back to the Star Sport podcast, and before we wrap things up this week, as always, we're going to preview Thursday's Southern Star Sports section. So Kieran, what can readers look out for this week? What is on your list of recommendations to read? I imagine everything, but if you were to pick just a handful.
I'm going to go with everything, Jack. It's that good. Again, the County Hurling Championships started last weekend, and there was a lot of West Cork action too. Bandon got off on the wrong foot. They lost their opener, but Newcestown drew against Father O'Neill's. They're actually denied what would have been a big win for Newcestown with a late Father O'Neill's goal. There was huge game between Kilbrittain and Argadine that Jamie Balls, Kilbrittain won, and Barry Rowe lost to Ballygarvan. So we've all those reports and reaction in this week's Southern Star. I also caught up with young Finn O'Reilly. He's a young Skibbereen rower who's had a great summer. He won a World Under 23 silver medal, and he also won 3 titles at the National Rowing Championships. And Finn probably sailed under the radar a small bit in recent weeks and months because of what the likes of Fintan McCarthy, Paul O'Donovan, and all these rowers, skib rowers, did at Olympic level. So nice interview with Finn there. We also have a really good chat actually with Phil Healy, who was presented with a West Cork Sports Star Monthly Award last week. And Phil is just chatting about her Olympic experience and what it was like over there and why she did not mind coming home early from the games. So we've a lot going on in this week's Star. A lot of GA. Obviously, the Cork Camogie loss is there. Plenty to sink your teeth into on Thursday morning. So, not surprisingly, Jack, I'd recommend this Thursday sports section.
And just before we wrap up as well, big shout out for the big hurling game this weekend, which is, of course, the Junior B quarter-final clash between Skib and Gabriel Rangers. So I'm sure there'll be a report in that one next week as well. So best of luck to Skib. I'm going to be partisan and say best of luck to Skib in that one. Kieran,
I want to say best of luck to Randall Oak, just to show that we're not biased towards any team in this. Best of luck to Skib and Randall Oak.
Gabriel Rangers,
the best team win.
Well, I don't know who Randall Oak are playing, but Skib are...
Skib and Gabriel. Right. Randall Oak are actually in action too. There's a couple of Junior B there's a quarterfinals or games this week. So best of luck to Skib, Gabriel's and Randall's. Let's look at all the West Cork teams.
Mostly Skib. Only because I'm involved, just for or have been involved in the past. Kieran, final point before we wrap up then. I really just wanted to get your own take on your hero, the hero of Old Trafford, the hero of the Stretford end. Cristiano Ronaldo, CR7, made his return against Newcastle, and he delivered big time in his first game back. So United beat Newcastle 4-1, Ronaldo with 2. Did you watch the game? Were you excited? Were you like a child on Christmas morning? Tell me how you felt.
Was it only best? We'll always say I'm like a child anyway, Jack. So there was no difference there. We're not going to go into Jamie Carragher or Gary Neville, Messi Ronaldo comparisons, but Ronaldo, 36 years of age, he's brought in to score goals, and he got goals. And if he gets 20 goals this season, I think it'll be a success. And I think he will get 20 goals. He showed he's still a goal poacher, supreme. Very impressed actually by his second goal, because he showed a turn of pace there and a good finish. And for those that think at 36 years of age that he's lost all his pace, there's still a kick there. He's obviously not the player he was 7-8 years ago, but I'm not the man I was 7-8 years ago. I went out Saturday night and I wasn't that well on Sunday, whereas if I went out 10 years ago, I'd have been a small bit fresher. So Father Time catches up with all of us. It's the same with Ronaldo, but I was impressed by what I saw. But it's more, as well as his on-field presence, it's his off-field presence too. I think he's just a ultimate professional. Like, he takes care of himself so much, and it's going to have a positive effect on so many players at United, young and old. And for the Premier League itself, Jesus, what a quality player to get back in there. You've now 4 top quality teams in there, like kind of United, Chelsea, Liverpool, and City. Like, Jesus, it's a tough one to call the winner out of that 4.
Yeah, well, it will be Liverpool, and the reason is because Mo Salah is the world's greatest footballer. Anyway, we're going to leave it on that very true point. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.